Echoes call from hollow halls, a voice that creeps and softly crawls. Time stands still, the air is...
This is the story of Shaye Saint John, the mannequin-faced figure who haunted the early internet with videos so bizarre they blurred the line between art and insanity. What began as a strange performance project spiraled into one of the web's darkest mysteries. Behind the distorted laughter, shaky camera work, and plastic mask was a story of trauma, obsession, and a creator whose vision went far beyond horror. Her name became legend among those who dared to look deeper. Who was Shaye Saint John? A broken woman trapped in her delusions, or an artist exposing the twisted beauty of madness? Today we will be talking about the 6 most disturbing websites. They say you should live every day as if it's your last. But what if a website claimed it could actually tell you when that last day would come? One website has gone viral for doing exactly that, predicting the date and even the exact hour of your death. It sounds like a dark joke, but millions have already tested it, curious or terrified about what they might find. The site claims to use global health data to calculate the day you'll die, using information like your birth date, gender, lifestyle, and even whether you're an optimist or a pessimist. It borrows statistics from the World Health Organization, compiles the numbers weekly, and then spits out a date that looks eerily specific. Something like April 7th, 2054, at 7 in the morning. It feels personal, but experts say it's anything but. Dr. Philippa Chiam, a health expert interviewed about the site, explained that while it appears scientific, the prediction is far from accurate. These are generalized statistics, she said. They only look at basic factors like age, weight, and smoking habits. You can't calculate the exact day someone will die from that. Still, curiosity gets the better of people. One television host tried it live on air. He entered his details, birth year, weight, habits, and waited as the screen flashed his supposed death date, July 6, 2075. His co-host laughed and joked, "Maybe if you drink less 2 days before, you'll live longer." But the eerie silence that followed showed what everyone was thinking. It's funny, until you realize the countdown has begun. The site doesn't just give you a date, it shows a timer, counting down your remaining seconds, every moment ticking away like sand through an hourglass. For some, it's a wake-up call. For others, it's pure anxiety. The hosts went further, experimenting with how lifestyle changes affected the prediction. Smoking? The site instantly took off 6 years ago. Being overweight? -4. If you were a woman, your lifespan increased by 5 years. Since statistics show women tend to live longer, the site made it feel like your life could be adjusted like a spreadsheet. A few clicks and you've gained or lost time. But here's the problem. These websites don't ask the real questions that shape a person's life. They ignore things like seatbelt use, risky hobbies, mental health, family history, or even where you live. Dr. Trim explained that deeper factors such as race, income, education, marriage, fitness, and diet all play major roles in longevity, and none of these are properly accounted for. They make it seem like fate is fixed, she said, when in reality, so much of it is still within our control. And yet, despite the flaws, people can't resist the temptation. The comments on the website are filled with emotional reactions. Some users treat it like a challenge. One wrote, "It said I'll die in 2 years, so I'm going to live healthier, quit drinking, and stop smoking." Another took the complete opposite approach. "If I've only got 2 years left, I'm quitting my job and traveling the world." It's fascinating how a few random numbers can alter how people view their own existence. Psychologists say this taps into one of humanity's oldest fears, not death itself, but the uncertainty of when it will happen. The illusion of control gives people comfort, even when they know deep down it's impossible to predict. One anchor summed it up perfectly on the morning show. You could enter your information, get a date decades away, feel safe, and then one reckless decision changes everything. Everyone laughed, but there was an uncomfortable truth behind the joke. You can't outsmart life's unpredictability. Still, people return to these sites again and again, partly out of curiosity, partly out of fear. They treat it like checking their horoscope or fortune cookie. But the underlying thought lingers. What if it's right? What if the number on the screen actually means something? Dr. Chum ended the segment with a calm warning. "Don't let a website define how you live," she said. "Use it as a reminder that every moment matters. Not because the timer says so, but because it's true." The anchor chuckled and replied, Well, mine says 2075, so I've got time. The studio laughed, but the countdown clock kept running quietly on the screen. Maybe that's the point. Not to scare you, but to make you realize how precious time really is. Whether it's 20 years or 2, none of us know when that final second will tick away. And maybe in a strange way, that's what makes life worth living. Before we go any further, I just want to ask you for a small favor. If you're enjoying the video so far, please give it a like. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time. We are pushing to hit 200,000 subscribers before the year ends. It feels impossible, but I know we can achieve it together because your support has been unreal. I know you'll subscribe, so without wasting more time, let's get back to the video. In the early 2000s, the internet was still a strange and experimental place. There were no algorithms pushing polished videos to your feed, and no filters to make everything look perfect. Back then, the web had corners that felt untouched by logic or reason. One of those corners was home to a name that people whispered about with both fascination and fear: Shaye Saint John. To stumble onto one of Shaye's triggers, as her videos were called, was to walk into a world that made no sense at all. Her clips were chaotic, messy, and oddly hypnotic. The visuals looked like they were filmed on an old camcorder, the sound distorted, and the energy uncomfortably strange. Shaye appeared as a mannequin-like figure, wearing gloves and a plastic mask, frozen in a permanent smile that felt both cheerful and deeply unsettling. Her clothes were mismatched, her movements jerky and unpredictable, and her voice, high-pitched and shaky, sounded like a child trying to imitate an adult. In one of her most infamous videos, Hand Thing, she claps her gloved hands together over and over again, chanting nonsense in a panicked tone. "I can't stop doing the thing," she says again and again, half laughing, half desperate. It wasn't just what she did that unsettled people. It was the feeling that she knew you were watching her.
God! See, I can't stop doing the thing. What is it? God, I heard you doing the hand thing. Shay, my hands are hurting, Shay.
Her story, as pieced together by internet sleuths, only made things stranger. According to the legends, Shaye had once been a model living a glamorous life before a terrible accident left her disfigured. Some said it was a car crash. Others claimed it was a fire. Whatever the truth was, she supposedly built her new body from mannequin parts and wore a mask to hide her scars. The trauma, some believed, broke her mind, and what viewers saw online were the fragments of what was left. But others had a darker theory. They claimed Shaye had been part of an experiment gone wrong, a kind of mind control project carried out in a hospital where she was recovering. Her erratic behavior, they said, wasn't performance art. It was the result of something that had twisted her perception of reality. What made her videos truly haunting was that they blurred the line between real and fake. Her sets weren't elaborate studios. They were normal homes, overgrown backyards, and cluttered kitchens. But when seen through Shaye's lens, they looked wrong. Everyday objects, a doll, a pair of scissors, a clock, felt like clues to a mystery no one could solve. Her voice would rise and fall like static, sometimes cutting out mid-sentence, as if you were hearing a signal from another dimension. As her following grew, so did the obsession. Some viewers were convinced she was real, a woman trapped in her own delusions. Others believed she was a character created by a disturbed artist. Yet, even those who dismissed her as fiction couldn't deny how eerie it all felt. Her world seemed too intimate, too personal, like you were peering into someone's private breakdown. A few dedicated fans tried to decode her videos. They slowed them down, analyzed background objects, and noted recurring symbols. A spiral drawn on a wall, a clock frozen at the same time in multiple clips. Every detail felt intentional, but none of it ever led anywhere. The deeper people dug, the less sense it made. And then came Kiki, a childlike doll with stiff limbs and oversized eyes, who appeared in later videos as Shaye's strange sidekick. Together, they performed dances, held conversations, and reenacted absurd scenes that felt more like nightmares than skits. Kiki's stillness made Shaye's frantic energy even creepier. Their relationship looked symbolic. Some said Kiki represented Shaye's fractured self, while others thought it was her attempt to connect with a world that no longer felt real. Over time, it became clear that the world of Shaye Saint John wasn't just random chaos. Beneath the bizarre editing and surreal performances were real themes of identity, loneliness, and the masks people wear to hide their pain. The mannequins symbolized disconnection, and the artificial limbs were a desperate attempt to rebuild what was lost. Shaye wasn't just a figure of fear, she was a mirror held up to the fragility of the human mind. But behind the mask of Shaye was someone entirely different. The truth eventually surfaced. Shaye Saint John was the creation of Eric Fournier, a multimedia artist and filmmaker known for his unconventional style. Eric had a history of exploring dark and absurd themes, alienation, societal decay, and the limits of human understanding. Through Shaye, he created a world that was both grotesque and poetic, a haunting reflection of trauma and resilience. Sadly, Eric passed away in 2010 due to complications from illness, leaving behind a legacy that continues to mystify the internet. His creation, however, never really died. The videos, low quality, strange, and unforgettable, still float around the web today, preserved by loyal fans who refuse to let them disappear. Shaye Saint John became more than a creepy internet legend. She became a symbol of what the early internet once was: raw, experimental, and free from filters. Her work inspired an entire generation of creators in the analog horror community, a genre built on discomfort and distorted realities. Her eerie aesthetic and surreal storytelling paved the way for modern horror projects that explore fear, not through monsters but through the unsettling depths of human psychology. At its core, the story of Shaye Saint John is about identity, how we shape it, how we lose it, and how trauma can make us question what's real. Fournier's art reminds us that the masks we wear are both a shield and a prison, and that sometimes the scariest stories are the ones that reflect us back to ourselves. Even now, long after her official website vanished and her YouTube channel went silent, people still search for her videos like archaeologists uncovering ancient artifacts. Each clip feels like a relic from a forgotten time, distorted, haunting, and strangely human. Shaye Saint John was never meant to be fully understood. She was a mystery designed to make you uncomfortable, to challenge your sense of normal, and to leave you wondering whether art can be beautiful even when it's disturbing. In her fractured smile and trembling hands, she carried both fear and fascination, a reminder that on the internet, some ghosts never really disappear. It was the end of Willow Street, where the calm of a quiet suburban neighborhood in Stratford faded into the edge of an ancient forest. There stood a massive Victorian house known as the Dionaea house. Its structure loomed tall and cold, always seeming to be covered in twilight. Even on bright days, the sunlight dimmed near it, casting an eerie gloom over the nearby homes. People said it looked as if the house absorbed the light itself. Few dared to approach it. Most avoided even glancing in its direction. Inside, a strange force seemed to sleep, waiting patiently, weaving itself into the fabric of reality. The story of the Dionaea house began with something ordinary. An email. Mark, a young man living a routine life in the suburbs, received a message from his old friend Richard, someone he hadn't heard from in years. The email contained only a link and a cryptic note urging him to see what lies beyond. Curiosity got the better of him. After a few moments of hesitation, Mark clicked. That single decision marked the beginning of his descent into something far darker than he could have imagined. The website he opened was nothing like any other. It was filled with strange symbols, unsettling images, and a twisting storyline that mixed fact and fiction until you couldn't tell them apart. The site claimed the Dionaea house wasn't just a building, but something living, a sentient entity that fed off those who dared to enter it. At first, Mark dismissed it as a prank, but as he read on, he came across stories, first-hand accounts from people who claimed to have been drawn into the house's dark presence. The more he read, the less he could ignore it. Curiosity turned into fascination, and fascination turned into obsession. Soon, Mark started a blog to document his findings. He posted about the strange history of the house, the eerie events on Willow Street, and the chilling testimonies he uncovered. Each post drew more attention, but behind the screen, something else was watching him. Every keystroke, every late-night post seemed to bring him closer to the shadow that lingered behind the digital words. Then, the nightmares began. Mark started seeing the Dionaea house in his dreams. He would wander through its dark hallways, hearing faint whispers that grew louder the deeper he went. He'd wake up drenched in sweat, unable to shake off the feeling that he hadn't really left the house at all. It was as if the house had begun to cross over, from myth to memory, from screen to mind. The line between reality and nightmare blurred. Objects in his apartment started moving on their own. He would hear faint voices calling his name when no one was there. The shadows in the corners of his room seemed to shift when he looked away. Mark realized the house was no longer trapped within the website. It had found him. Terrified but determined, Mark continued to post his experiences. His last entries were desperate and fragmented. He wrote about strange figures appearing outside his window, about feeling watched even in daylight, about hearing knocking sounds at his door when he was alone. His words grew erratic, descending into confusion. Then one day, the post stopped. Weeks passed. Readers who followed his blog noticed the sudden silence. Some thought it was part of a clever online story. Others feared the worst. When they revisited the website Mark had linked to, it was still active, unchanged, eerie, and waiting. The Dionaea house had vanished from the physical world, but now lived on through the web. Soon, whispers spread across online forums. Some people said they too had visited the site and seen things they couldn't explain. Faces in static images, words that changed when no one was refreshing the page, shadows in their rooms after midnight. Others refused to go near it at all. The legend of the Dionaea house grew. It became an internet ghost story. A warning passed between users late at night. Never click the link. But people still did. Curiosity always wins. And just like Mark, some never returned to their online lives the same way again. Over time, countless versions of the story appeared. Each new reader added their own experience, new encounters, strange dreams, mysterious glitches that happened right after visiting the page. The site seemed alive, adapting and evolving with every visitor. And so, the Dionaea house transformed from an urban myth into something else entirely. A presence, a digital echo that lived inside the internet itself. Even now, those who search deep enough claim the link still exists. Some say the site changes depending on who opens it, showing fragments of their fears, their regrets, and their darkest thoughts. Others insist that if you stay on it too long, the images begin to move. No one truly knows what happened to Mark or his friend Richard. The trail ends with silence. But the legend of the Dionaea house remains, a reminder that in the vast maze of the internet, not everything we find stays behind the screen. Sometimes, when curiosity takes over, it reaches back. And as long as that website still lingers online, somewhere at the end of a forgotten link, the Dionaea house waits, patient, timeless, and watching. Somewhere deep in an undisclosed location, a woman endures something that feels endless. Her name is known only as SCP-231-7. Her suffering is not random. It is systematic, monitored, and bound by a rule so cruel it seems impossible to justify. Those responsible for her torment are not ordinary people, but death row inmates chosen for one grim reason. They have nothing left to lose. They follow orders that ensure she never grows numb to pain, because her agony serves a purpose. The moment compassion enters the room, they are removed or worse, replaced entirely. If anyone dares to help her escape or put an end to her suffering, they would face immediate execution. It sounds monstrous, and it is. But what is even more horrifying is that this procedure, codenamed Procedure 1 Montauk, is what keeps the world safe. Because if they ever stopped, she would give birth to something that could end humanity itself. Welcome to the SCP Foundation, an organization operating beyond governments, beyond borders, and beyond moral limits. Their motto is simple: secure, contain, protect. They are the ones who deal with the things that should not exist. The anomalies, creatures, and objects that defy logic and threaten life as we know it. To the public, they are invisible. To those who stumble across them, they are the reason normalcy still exists. Like a shadow government with eyes everywhere, they work to preserve order, even when it means breaking every law ever written. One of their contained anomalies, SCP-500, looks completely harmless. It is just an old prescription bottle filled with red pills. But these pills can cure anything, any disease, any infection, even terminal illnesses, in just a few hours. Sounds miraculous, right? But there is a catch. Only 47 pills remain. Imagine the chaos, the wars, the greed that would erupt if the world discovered it. The Foundation hides this knowledge, not out of cruelty, but because humanity is not ready for it. That is the frightening paradox of the SCP Foundation. They might look like villains, but in their eyes, they are protecting us from ourselves. Every government on Earth knows about them. Every nation silently relies on them, and yet no one dares to interfere, because without them, there may not be a world left to save. Their operations follow 3 steps: secure, contain, protect. Secure means finding and isolating anything unnatural before it reaches the public. Contain means locking it away, erasing memories, deleting evidence, or even, if it comes to that, eliminating anyone who knows too much. Protect means ensuring humanity never has to face what lies behind those locked doors. Over the years, entire towns have quietly vanished under mysterious circumstances, all to keep certain anomalies from escaping. For the Foundation, it is a simple equation: one city for the survival of the planet. To classify their discoveries, they use 4 main categories. Safe SCPs can be contained easily, like SCP-999, a cheerful orange blob that makes anyone it touches feel joy and laughter. Euclid. SCPs are unpredictable, often sentient, and difficult to control. One example is SCP-3008, an endless IKEA-like building filled with strange, faceless workers who become hostile after dark. Then there is Cature, the ones that keep the Foundation awake at night. Cature-class SCPs are dangerous, volatile, and nearly impossible to contain. SCP-354, for instance, is a pool of red liquid in northern Canada that spawns monsters, some mechanical, some reptilian, all lethal. Each time something emerges, the Foundation races to neutralize it before it escapes into our world. And finally, there is the most mysterious class of all, Thaumail. These are SCPs so powerful that the Foundation uses them to control or contain other SCPs. In other words, they are anomalies that fight anomalies. When an SCP is too dangerous to contain, it is neutralized, wiped out completely. One eerie case, SCP-4991, was not a creature at all, but an infection spreading through internet posts describing an apocalypse on another plane of existence. The Foundation deleted every trace of it before it could cross into ours. Inside the organization, everything runs on hierarchy. From Class A to Class E, personnel are divided by how much they know and how much risk they can take. Class A members are untouchable. They oversee strategy, but never go near an anomaly. Class B staff work on safer sites. Class C agents handle field operations and direct contact. Class D workers are death row inmates used as disposable test subjects. And Class E are those who have already been exposed to unknown dangers. At the top sit the O5 Council, 13 shadowy figures who run everything. Beneath them are site directors managing hundreds of hidden facilities worldwide. Researchers and containment teams study the entities. Tactical forces respond to any outbreak, ready to sacrifice themselves if an SCP breaches its walls. The Foundation is everywhere. In your city, your government, even your internet, their presence is woven into the world so quietly that most people never notice. Their only goal is to maintain normal life by hiding what is not normal. Of course, skeptics online call the SCP stories fiction, creative writing, a fan-made universe of horror. But is that not exactly how a real secret organization would hide? Behind stories so strange, so unbelievable, that no one would take them seriously. One of their mottos sums it up perfectly. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he does not exist. And perhaps the same could be said for the SCP Foundation. They protect humanity from things we cannot understand. But that protection comes at a cost. They decide who lives, who dies, and what truth is allowed to survive. If you ever discover something you were not meant to see, something the Foundation has tried to bury, do not expect them to ask questions, because by then, it is already too late. Imagine dedicating your entire existence to following a divine being. You pray, obey, and live by every word this deity speaks. You shape your morals, your friendships, and even your future around this belief system. You spend every day yearning for the reward that's been promised, the chance to finally leave this world and ascend to paradise. For years, this idea fuels your purpose. Then one day, that long-awaited moment comes. The divine appears, smiling, ready to fulfill the promise. Your people begin their journey to the next level. But before you can join them, this higher power looks directly at you and says, "You, my chosen one, must stay behind." You're stunned. While your friends ascend to a better place, you remain on Earth, alone, confused, yet told to keep spreading the message. That was the reality for 2 members of the Heaven's Gate cult. The Heaven's Gate story is one of the most infamous tragedies in modern spiritual history. It's a blend of faith, science fiction, and heartbreaking devotion. The group was founded by Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles, who believed the world was about to end. They preached that the human body was merely a vessel, and true believers would one day leave their earthly containers to ascend to a higher existence, literally to board a spaceship and travel to a level above human life. On a quiet day in March 1997, police entered a mansion in San Diego, California, and discovered 39 bodies. The followers of Heaven's Gate had taken their lives as part of a ritual, convinced they would join a spacecraft traveling behind the Hale-Bopp comet. Each person wore identical clothing and sneakers. They had eaten a lethal mixture of barbiturates with applesauce and vodka, then secured plastic bags over their heads. To outsiders, it sounded unreal, even absurd. But for these people, it was faith in its purest, most extreme form. When news broke, the world reacted with shock, then mockery. Late-night shows made jokes. Headlines turned it into a punchline. But behind every photograph were grieving families and shattered lives. These weren't nameless followers. They were sons, daughters, teachers, and artists who had lost themselves in a belief that promised them eternal life beyond Earth. Yet, the strangest part of this story is what came after. More than 20 years later, the Heaven's Gate website still exists, not archived, not abandoned, but fully functional and updated. The same site that once preached the group's doctrines still sits online, like a digital ghost. Its pages include the cult's writings, messages, and even images of members of the Kingdom of Heaven, eerily resembling the stereotypical aliens seen in old science fiction movies. What's truly unsettling is one specific page titled "Our Position Against Suicide." It claims that the group opposes suicide except apparently when the time is right, in which case taking one's life is redefined as something higher, something divine. It's a confusing, contradictory message that shows just how far the cult's logic had drifted from reality. Even more astonishing, there's a contact email still active on the site. When a journalist decided to reach out expecting silence, they received a reply. The Heaven's Gate website wasn't run by strangers or pranksters. It was maintained by two actual members who had been left behind. Their names were Mark and Sarah King. In an interview years later, the Kings revealed that Applewhite himself had instructed them not to follow the others. They were told to remain on Earth, to keep the website running, and to continue spreading the group's teachings until the rest returned. Despite their leader's death and the loss of their entire community, they never abandoned their mission. When asked in a separate email interview how they felt about being left behind, whether they felt lonely, abandoned, or angry, they replied that such emotions were very human and not something they experienced. They insisted they were at peace with their role. Still, it's hard not to wonder what really goes on in their minds. Imagine watching your entire spiritual family leave this world, believing they've gone to paradise while you remain here, maintaining a website that preaches their beliefs to strangers who mostly view it as a relic or curiosity. The Kings say they aren't recruiting new followers. They're just preserving information for the return. But that raises a haunting question. Do they still believe that spaceship is coming back? Every time someone visits the Heaven's Gate website, they're looking into a time capsule, a digital monument to one of the internet's earliest and most chilling cults. And the fact that it's still being actively maintained by people who are part of it makes it even more disturbing. It's a window into what unwavering faith, when placed in the wrong hands, can become. Sometimes, I wonder what it must feel like to be them. To believe so deeply in something that the entire world calls delusion. To be the only ones left behind, holding on to a promise that may never be fulfilled. Would you feel angry, betrayed, or maybe relieved? Because as tragic as their story is, there's a quiet relief in still being alive, a chance to see the world as it is, not as some recycled planet doomed for destruction, but as a place already filled with mystery, beauty, and second chances. Maybe in some strange way, that's the true revelation Heaven's Gate never saw, that paradise doesn't always exist somewhere in the sky. Sometimes it's right here, waiting for us to notice. And that haunting little website, it's still there, still online. A reminder that even decades after the comet faded from view, some people are still waiting for a spaceship that will never come. Back in the late 2000s, when the internet still felt like a vast and exciting frontier, most people's first experiences online were filled with wonder. For some, it was 2009, the year of Rage Comics Anonymous, and endless scrolling through meme sites like I Can Has Cheeseburger. Many of us remember that thrill of using a personal laptop for the first time, discovering what seemed like an entire universe of creativity and chaos waiting just a click away. It was a simpler time, when the web wasn't yet ruled by algorithms, and every site felt like a new world. Among those early internet memories, one experience stood out for many users, a website that seemed almost too strange to explain, Zumbo.com. The moment you landed on the page, you were greeted with a surreal voice. Welcome to Zumbo. You can do anything. The only limit is yourself.
Welcome to ZomboCom. You can do anything at ZomboCom. Anything at all. The only limit is yourself.
The background was a spinning, colorful pinwheel, looping endlessly while the mysterious narrator kept reassuring you of your unlimited potential. It was odd, hypnotic, and oddly comforting. That was it. No buttons, no menus, no purpose, just the voice and the loop. Zumbo.com first appeared online on the 28th of November, 1999. It was created as a parody of flashy websites popular during the early internet era. Back then, when slow dial-up connections ruled, many websites would display a preloader animation to entertain users while the page loaded. Zumbo.com took that concept and exaggerated it into something absurdly simple. It became an inside joke among early internet users, a kind of digital riddle that made no sense yet somehow felt profound. The site was originally shared among students and faculty at George Washington University, before spreading to larger online communities like FARC. Soon, it became a cult classic, even being used as an early version of a Rickroll. Clicking a mysterious link would lead you not to what you expected, but to that same spinning pinwheel and the echoing voice welcoming you to Zumbo. But who made this strange creation? The website's registry revealed the name, Joshua Levine. Levine wasn't a major tech developer or corporate designer. He was the founder of a small independent label called 15 Foot Stick, which focused on experimental music. The connection suddenly made sense. Zumbo.com felt like a performance art piece, part humor, part mystery, and part self-parody. In a 2001 interview, Levine explained how the name came about. Zumbo, he said, had several meanings. It's a word found in parts of Africa, a surname, and even a region in Angola. But in his case, the name came from a friend who jokingly referred to a male zombie as a zombo. The name stuck. When it came time to register a domain, Zumbo.com just sounded right. Yet, even with that explanation, fans couldn't help but wonder if there was a deeper meaning. Was Zumbo.com some hidden art project? A philosophical statement? On Levine's 15 Foot Stick website, the FAQ section contained an even stranger message. What is Zumbo.com? Zumbo.com is what you make it. That might sound silly, but it's true. There is no opening or closing at Zumbo.com. There's only the passing of seasons. It's another ring in the tree. It's all of life moving from winter to spring. It was deliberately cryptic, part joke, part poetry, leaving visitors with the sense that maybe Zumbo.com wasn't meant to mean anything at all. It simply existed, like an art installation in cyberspace, where each person could interpret it differently. Still, a few mysteries surrounded the site. One was the music. The soft looping tune that played in the background was never officially identified. Some early users believed there was supposed to be a Zumbo.com album, mentioned once on Levine's 15 Foot Stick page, which would have featured that same ethereal soundtrack, but if it ever existed, it was never released. Whether the original music is lost forever or just hidden in an old hard drive somewhere remains unclear. Another mystery was the voice. Who was behind that calm, almost hypnotic welcome? Internet sleuths have been trying to figure it out for decades. Some speculated it might have been Levine himself, while others believed it was a voice actor he hired. No one has ever confirmed it. And despite countless forum discussions, Reddit threads, and web archives, the answer remains one of the internet's earliest unsolved questions. What's even more fascinating is that Zumbo.com has survived while so many of its digital peers vanished. It was built using Flash, a technology that officially ended in 2020. Yet somehow the site was rebuilt in modern code, HTML5, and it still runs exactly as it did over 20 years ago. It's like a time capsule, proof of how the early internet wasn't just about functionality, but about imagination and experimentation. Over time, Zumbo.com became more than just a relic. It's been referenced in webcomics, recreated in virtual reality, and even praised by artists and musicians. Dave Rowntree, the drummer from the British band Blur, once called it his favorite website of all time. To him and to many others, it represented the playful spirit of the web, before social media took over, a reminder that the internet used to be fun, weird, and endlessly curious. So while the modern web might be polished and predictable, Zumbo.com stands as a survivor from that wild, creative age. It doesn't ask for clicks, likes, or data. It simply welcomes you, the same way it did in 1999. If you visit the site today, you'll still hear that same familiar voice telling you that you can do anything, that your only limit is yourself. It's strange, almost haunting in its simplicity, yet oddly inspiring. In a digital world that constantly demands more, Zumbo.com remains one of the few places that asks for nothing and gives back nostalgia, humor, and a small reminder of how far we've come. After all, maybe the true message of Zumbo.com was never about technology. Maybe it was about imagination, the idea that in this vast, chaotic internet, the only real limit is you. And that brings us to the end of this episode. If you found this video informative, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss what we drop next. We cover stories like this almost every day, and trust me, you don't want to be left behind. If you can't wait until the next upload, there are more videos popping up on your screen in just a few seconds. Click one and keep watching. Until then, take care. I'm out.